Hi, I'm Hal Roberts. This is Bridge City News. Here's some of the top stories we've been following. A historic agreement has been reached between Ottawa and the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation to hand over more records on residential schools. The Canadian government is offering financial help to Ukraine as the threat of a Russian invasion intensifies. And we hear from the founder of a Christian mission who's offering help to the homeless in Lethbridge and those who are battling severe addictions.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Thanks so much for joining us. Many Canadians are still in shock following the discovery of a family of 4 who were found frozen to death on a field in Manitoba. Officials say the family was trying to cross the border illegally into the United States. The Reeve for Emerson Franklin, Dave Carlson, says illegal border crossings have actually gone down in recent years, so he was surprised to hear of the deaths. A 47-year-old Florida man has been charged with human smuggling.
They would have been looking at, just farmland, wide open spaces, not much shelter at all. The wind was probably howling, as it has been for several days, and probably visibility would have been poor, and there would have been extreme wind chills. So definitely would have been some extreme weather to contend with. We had quite a large wave of migrants back in 2017. Into 2018, there were still quite a few. And then into 2019, it started really tapering off and getting fewer and fewer. And then in 2020 and COVID hitting, it was even far less. We know it still happens. It's just back when it was more prevalent, it used to be more like, folks knocking on people's doors looking for help, and there was our emergency services was going out quite a bit at the time. Since that time, for the last few years, a couple of years here now, RCMP and CBSA have been handling it on their own and processing and taking the migrants into Winnipeg. So we don't see as much of it.
Ottawa's reached an agreement with the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation to hand over more records on residential schools that the government was holding back. The Trudeau Liberals say the agreement outlines how and when it will send the historical documents to the Winnipeg-based centre. The government will also make them available to residential school survivors and work to preserve them.
As part of this obligation and the broader objective of reconciliation, on December 10th, I committed that my department would hand over a series of residential school documents in their possession to the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation within 30 to 45 days. Today, we follow through on that promise. The Government of Canada, the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation have developed a memorandum of understanding and agreement that covers the sharing of documents related to the history and administration of residential schools across Canada.
Canadian health officials say it appears as though the Omicron-driven pandemic wave may be flattening in First Nations communities. Tom Wong says it will continue to do so as long as current restrictions are maintained.
And one of the things that we've been working with all the communities is to making sure that, the message, is there. At this point, relaxing public health measures will really end up inviting the virus to enter into communities and infecting more and more people and sending some members of the communities to the hospitals. We don't want that. There is light at the end of the tunnel, but not now.
Well, we're closing in on the end of January. It's hard to believe. Did you make any New Year's resolutions this year for 2022? Have you kept or broken them? For our poll question, we asked, do you believe in making New Year's resolutions? The results are in from our poll, and 75% of you gave a resounding no. Be sure to log on to bridgecitynews.ca for our newest poll question. We'll have the results for you at the end of next month. Weather-wise, it's not felt like January as the Chinook winds have brought us much warmer temperatures. We were well above zero again today in southwestern Alberta. Jeanette Roche is back with a sneak peek of the weather forecast. Jeanette, it looks like a nice weekend is also shaping up.
Yes, it certainly is, Hal. We're looking at double-digit temperatures for both Saturday and Sunday. And you also mentioned the reason behind that, which is those gusty Chinook winds. We're going to be seeing more of those this evening, 40-kilometer-per-hour wind gusts tonight, and up to 50K gusts on a Saturday. Sunday's forecast also expected to be a bit windy, but you know what? I will take the wind if it means that we're having a plus and double-digit temperatures in January. As for the rest of the week, I will let you know how that is shaping up later on in the newscast.
Yeah, loving the warm weather. Thanks so much, Jeanette. A Lethbridge family whose members recently became Canadian citizens says it was a long and grueling process. But as Angela Stewart explains now, the families say they wouldn't have it any other way and are happy to call Lethbridge home.
This is what I call now home.
Born and raised in Costa Rica, Lahia Ali, a mother to 3 young dashing boys, says she always knew Canada was where she wanted to be.
People in Canada are so friendly. I have so many opportunities here. And it's same with my kids.
After traveling to Canada for work many years ago and applying to become a Canadian resident, Ali says she knew she wanted to become a citizen, not just for her, but also for her boys.
I think it's an exhausting journey just to move from your country, leave everything you know, who you are, to go to another country and start all over.
She applied to become a citizen in 2018, and it was in May of 2020 when Ali took her citizenship test. 2 years later, a week ago, Ali and her 2 eldest boys officially became citizens of Canada during a virtual ceremony.
My 10-year-old say at the end of the ceremony, "Yay, we became Canadians now."
Prior to becoming a citizen, Ali says the entire process was not easy.
You have to prove that you speak English and that you understand, that you do the whole process by yourself.
She says she is now like everybody else.
I have to pay my taxes like everybody else, respect the law like everybody else. I didn't have any special treatment.
But there is one thing, though, that she's not a fan of.
I'm not a snow lover, for be honest. I remember I was in a window and say, okay, we're gonna go and play with the snow. As soon as I put my feet out, -30, I changed my mind.
For Bridge City News, I'm Angela Stewart.
The Lethbridge Hurricanes announced a change in how you purchase tickets with a 50% capacity restriction at the Nmac Centre. Tickets will be held for voucher holders until 5 p.m. 2 days before game day. After that time, all remaining seats will be released to the public. They can be purchased online, over the phone, or in person at the Nmac Centre or Yates Memorial Centre. Food and beverages are still not available at the games. Proof of vaccination and photo ID is needed for entry, and masks must be worn at all times. The Alberta Colleges Athletic Conference's Make Some Noise for Mental Health campaign has officially kicked off. The annual event runs throughout 17 post-secondary institutions across Alberta and Saskatchewan, including our very own Lethbridge College, promoting mental health awareness among student athletes. ACAC CEO Mark Kozak says this year is a little bit different.
Flipping the narrative around, rather than telling student athletes, this is what we want you to do to mark the campaign. Now we're asking the student athletes to tell us what they're going to do to mark the campaign. And so it's new. It's, there's a little bit of trepidation. Do our student athletes have the time? Do they have the energy? Because we know they have the interest.
RBC is once again partnering with the ACAC and will be giving a $13,000 incentive to the institutions involved. It's almost time to take the plunge in Lethbridge in support of Special Olympics Alberta. The Law Enforcement Torch Run Polar Plunge will be taking place in a virtual setting this year. From January 30th through March 12th, you can get creative with your plunges. Constable Braylon Hagan, the chair of the Law Enforcement Torch Run, says it's very important to generate funds for the event, but raising awareness for the Special Olympics is even more vital.
That is the biggest thing, is we want to raise the money, but as well, we want everybody to know what Special Olympics is all about, and we want people to be aware that it is in all of our communities, that we have those with intellectual disabilities, that sometimes they can't participate in high school sports. There are some schools that are breaking away and getting to that point, but we just want people to know that there are events for them to keep our athletes motivated, to have a social group, and to be physically fit.
Higgins says the in-person plunge on February 5th has been canceled due to the pandemic. Last year, 213 plungers took part in virtual dips and raised $116,000 in support of Special Olympics Alberta. Another great event is coming up. The Coldest Night of the Year event is taking place on February 26th. The event raises money for Streets Alive mission and the city's most vulnerable, whom the Christian group helps on a regular basis. As Micah Quinn explains, now this year marks the 11th anniversary of the in-person walk.
Last year, the Coldest Night of the Year event raised $73,000, and this year, there's a $70,000 goal for the walk.
There's the opportunity to walk virtually, so anytime in February you can, collect your pledges, do your walk, and be a part of this amazing event. Or you can also walk in person on February 26th at the Land O'Lakes Golf Course. We have all the safety protocols ready to go and in place.
The money that is raised goes directly to Streets Alive mission for things like a warm cup of coffee, socks, mittens, or snacks. But it goes way beyond just that for the organization when they help out the cities less fortunate.
All of this money goes towards our outreach type services for those people that are on the streets that are literally freezing to death in our world. Our community comes together amazing, and it does provide donations of a lot of these items, but we could always use more.
Mark Dick has been participating in the Coldest Night of the Year walk for the past 10 years. He says he takes part in the event because he loves the work that Streets Alive Mission does in the community, and it gave him an opportunity to do something with his 3 sons.
It's been a really great way for us to help our kids understand what some people experience all day, every day, all night, and not being able to go home and warm up or have a warm shower or have a warm meal, where this fundraiser, this opportunity to raise awareness with our children, for me, for our family, has been really important because we're only cold for a very short time, and then we get to go home and warm up.
As of Friday, the Coldest Night of the Year fundraiser has raised close to $4,000, which is 5% of the $70,000 goal for the event. For Bridge City News, I'm Micah Quinn.
You know, the Streets Alive mission has been helping many in our community for a number of years now. Co-founder Ken Kissick says a big part of what they do is to offer outreach programs helping those who are battling drug and alcohol addictions.
When we started 30 years ago, when we were dealing with alcohol and paint thinner and hairspray, we had time. With the opioid crisis, we can have a person that relapses, we bring them in and they relapse and they're dead the next day. There is no room anymore. So we are very focused on when we get people in, keeping them in and keeping them moving forward because the relapse can be deadly.
Find out more of how Streets Alive is having a big impact here in our community. That full interview with Ken Kissick is coming up after business news. Ontario Premier Doug Ford says his province will begin lifting public health restrictions January 31st as COVID-19 trends are improving. Ford says the phased reopening, which lifts restrictions on gatherings and businesses every 21 days, will depend on health indicators at the time.
Percent positivity has now dropped to 15.9%. New admissions to hospitals are starting to slow, and patients are spending far less time in the hospital when admitted. We can be confident that the worst is behind us as we look to cautiously ease public health measures. As we do, Ontario will repeat the success of the past reopenings. We're taking a phased approach with 21 days between each step to make sure we haven't moved too fast.
A new report says the Canadian military is struggling with a shortage of personnel as it faces more demands at home and abroad. While the Armed Forces is supposed to have just over 100,000 troops at full strength, new figures from the Defense Department show it is short 12,000 regular force troops and reservists at the end of November. Military commanders are also struggling with what to do with hundreds of soldiers who have refused to get vaccinated against COVID-19 despite an order to that effect from Chief of Defense Staff General Wayne Eyre. Canada's offering financial help to the government of Ukraine. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announced a $120 million loan, saying Ukrainian officials requested financial help during a meeting this week with Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly. Officials say the funding will support Ukraine's economic resilience and that Canada is exploring other options to bolster the country in the face of Russian aggression. The United States and Russia are seeking to lower the temperature in a heated standoff over Ukraine. High-stakes talks continue today aimed at preventing a feared Russian invasion.
The discussion today with Minister Lavrov was frank and substantive. I conveyed the position of the United States and our European allies and partners that we stand firmly with Ukraine in support of its sovereignty and territorial integrity. We've been clear. If any Russian military forces move across Ukraine's border, that's a renewed invasion. It will be met with swift severe, and a united response from the United States and our partners and allies.
Sadly, there were a couple of celebrity deaths this week. Rock singer Meat Loaf, whose real name was Marvin Lee Aday, died on Thursday. He was just 74. No cause of death was released. And comedian and actor Louis Anderson died in a Las Vegas hospital of complications from cancer. Anderson's career included stints on Touched by an Angel and Coming to America. He also hosted Family Feud from 1999 to 2002. Louis Anderson was just 68 years of age. Well, we had a much warmer day in Lethbridge. A lot of the snow has melted, and that trend will continue as we work toward the weekend. A complete look at the weather forecast is coming up. Those lovely Chinook winds have arrived once again, and with them some much milder temperatures here in southwestern Alberta. Jeanette Rocher is back with a full look at the weather forecast. Jeanette, word is we could see 10 or 11 degrees by the weekend?
Well, you heard correctly, Hal. 10 on Saturday, up to 11 degrees on Sunday. Even our overnight low this evening into the pluses. Same thing for Saturday night. Not bad for an overnight low there at all, I would say. As we were discussing before, those Chinook winds, of course, gusting up to 40 km per hour this evening. Saturday, up to 50 kilometers per hour. Sunday also expected to be a bit windy. Now, there are some periods of snow expected to begin Sunday evening into Monday. We're looking at periods of snow as well. 1 degree the high should be starting to clear on Monday night, bringing us a lovely sunny Tuesday with a high of 5 degrees that day, 7 degrees the high for Wednesday, and then 9 degrees on Thursday. So we're seeing plus temperatures all across the board. When you look at what the average high for this time of year is, which is -2. So we're well above that. We're doing well, I would say, for sure for January. -14, the average low for this time of year. 16 was our high temperature back in 1942. And in 1943, we were at -41. That was chilly. 8:18 is when the sun rose this morning. Our sun set this evening. 5:08 p.m., giving us about 8 hours and 50 minutes of daylight, much longer than yesterday, actually. Looking at periods of sun and cloud tomorrow in Victoria, high of 7 degrees, 8 degrees the high in Vancouver tomorrow, fog dissipating in the morning for both of those coastal cities, 8 degrees the high in Edmonton tomorrow. Overnight this evening, they're looking at snow, but should be clearing by tomorrow. Same thing for Calgary, looking at a high of 8 degrees with wind gusts up to 30 to 50 kilometers per hour. Snowfall expected in the region of Saskatoon and Regina, looking at about 2 centimeters of the white stuff there. -11 the high for Saskatoon, -8 in Regina, and -17 the high in Winnipeg tomorrow with a mix of sun and cloud. In Toronto tomorrow, looking at snowfall, -5 is the high. An extreme cold warning in effect for both Ottawa and Montreal into tonight and into Saturday morning. So frigid Arctic air is in that area. Those highs look like -14 and -18, but keep in mind with that wind chill, it's going to feel more like -40 in those regions. -13 the high tomorrow in Fredericton with sunshine. Mix of sun and cloud in Halifax tomorrow, -7 the high, -7 also the high in Charlottetown with beautiful sunny skies. Mix of sun and cloud tomorrow in St. John's with a high of -8. So there you have it. That is your forecast.
Stats Canada says retail sales increased for the second month in a row in November to $58.1 billion. But the 0.7% gain was down from the 1.6% growth recorded in October. That's underscored by Stats Canada's early estimate of a 2.1% drop in retail sales in December. The agency says consumers spent more in November for gas, food, beverages, and building materials, but retail sales were affected by severe flooding in British Columbia that impacted supply chains. Netflix stock was down almost 23% today after the streaming service delivered another quarter of disappointing subscriber growth. The company announced that it added 8.3 million worldwide subscribers in the fourth quarter last year. That was down around 200,000 that it had forecast. Management says the trend could continue into 2022 as tougher competition is undercutting the video streaming leader. Netflix says it expects to sign up 2.5 million new subscribers in the first quarter of this year. That is well below analysts' expectations of 4 million. The second most populous city in the United States is considering whether to ban new oil and gas drilling and phase out hundreds of existing wells. Los Angeles City Council is expected to vote on a measure that would shut down oil and gas fields in the city after 10 years of complaints from residents. Locals began lobbying local, state, and federal politicians to more closely regulate drilling after years of negative health impacts they blame on air pollution from the sites. Now, here's a look at today's markets. The indices were down again today. The TSX was down 436 points to 20,621. The Dow was down 450 points to 34,265. The S&P 500 was down 84 points to 4398, and the Nasdaq was down 385 points on the day to 13,769. West Texas Intermediate Oil was down 70 cents to 84.85 US per barrel. Natural gas was up 16 cents to 396 US. Gold was down 391 to 1835.38 US an ounce, and silver was down 17 cents to 24.30 US an ounce. Feed wheat is at $12.02 per bushel, barley's at $9.51, canola's at $22.97, and corn is at $10.54 per bushel. Live cattle were down 40 cents to $137.93, feeder cattle were down 90 cents to $160.28, and lean hogs were up $1.28 to $86.20. The Canadian dollar was down slightly over the past 24 hours to 79.49 US. Recapping one of our top stories, Ottawa has reached a historic agreement with the National Centre for Truth and Reconciliation to hand over more records on residential schools that the government was holding back. The Trudeau Liberals say the agreement outlines how and when it will send the historical documents to the Winnipeg-based centre. The government will also make them available to residential school survivors. Streets Alive Mission in Lethbridge has been doing impactful work in our community for 30 years, helping our homeless and many who are battling drug and alcohol addictions. Coming up, Jeanette Rocher chats with the co-founder of Streets Alive, Ken Kissick, who discusses the various and important programs they have available to help people turn their lives around.
Here's today's Bridge City News Community Calendar. Lethbridge Legal Guidance is a nonprofit society offering free legal advice to low-income Southern Albertans. It holds clinics on Tuesdays from 4 to 6 p.m. by appointment only. Some of the areas the society assists in include family, criminal, traffic, immigration, EI, and other issues. For more information, call 403-380-6338 or visit their website, lethbridgelegalguidance.ca. Join the Helen Schuler Nature Center staff for a fun introduction to winter survival and test your skills through a series of team challenges. Taking place Saturday, February 5th from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m., this workshop will teach you valuable skills that you can use in your next winter adventure. Cost is $10 per person and is open for those 16 and up. The workshop takes place outside, so come prepared and dress for the weather. For details and to sign up, visit leisure.lethbridge.ca. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.
The COVID-19 pandemic has impacted all of us, and it's also impacted many of our homeless population. To talk about the challenges of our homeless, the working poor, and those with addictions is Ken Kissick. He is the co-founder of Streets Alive Mission in Lethbridge. Ken, so great to have you back on again today. Welcome back.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So Ken, before we get into anything about COVID, we have had some bitterly cold days and weeks this winter, especially back around the holidays. It was pretty bad back then. Can you explain how weather like that impacts our homeless population?
Well, obviously the homeless population doesn't have the opportunity to get in and stay in like we would. The nature of the addiction is that takes priority over any kind of even safety or those kinds of things. So they get out in the weather and they usually aren't properly dressed. Their eating habits are such that they can lose energy fast in the cold weather. So creating warming centers and places for them to stay and trying to keep them inside is good, as well as trying to make sure that they're adequately dressed is very important.
Definitely. Now, how can viewers help your organization, Streets Alive? What kinds of donations do you need to help in cold weather like this?
Well, we're always constantly looking for warm clothes. Obviously, the biggest thing we usually need in cold weather are the things that cover, we need like warm boots or socks, mitts and gloves and toques. Generally, if you can keep your extremities warm, your ability to the rest of you kind of stays warm. And they're good at layering, but we go through a ton of gloves and socks and toques, so that's one of the things that we usually desperately need.
I can imagine. Now, speaking of cold, you have your annual event called Coldest Night of the Year. It's a walk. It's coming up February 26th. Now, Ken, can you tell us what this is all about and how viewers can help and also get involved?
So this is an annual event, and I think it's 10 or 12 years that we've been doing it now. It is a way for individuals and families to join together and raise some money and awareness of the cold. We do a walk, 2K or 5K. We've partnered with Land O'Lakes Golf Course, so it gives us a challenge to be able to self-distance and those kinds of things. People want to help. They just need to go to type into your searcher Coldest Night of the Year /Lethbridge, and it'll take you to the website and it'll walk you through whatever you need to do. You can set up teams, join a team, and it's all interactive online, so you can raise sponsors. You don't have to go door to door. You just send invites out and people can join up. It's a lot of fun. We're looking for 250 to 300 people. We have walks in the morning and the afternoon, so you can kind of pick when you want to come. And like I say, and it's really a beautiful kind of walk in and around the golf course. So we look forward to it. It's a lot of fun.
Sounds nice, definitely, and hopefully it won't be too cold, even though it's called Coldest Night of the Year, and that's basically what it's all about. It's just to kind of remind us what this population has to go through, basically on a daily basis, right? Now, Ken, what about the Omicron wave of COVID? I know we've talked COVID so much in the past, but how is this impacting our homeless population?
The reality is our homeless population their immune systems are really strange. And we're not seeing much of it at all in the population. A lot of them had the original
variant, I guess.
Wave, the variant, whatever the first one was, and there's a level of immunity in that. If any of them have been incarcerated or anything like that, they're automatically fully vaccinated. So we're not experiencing that. And in the beginning, some of our staff got caught in it. And so right now it's not affecting us hardly at all. And so we're very grateful and blessed by God for that.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to say that's a wonderful blessing if you're not affected at all. I would imagine that, like you said, some of your workers got caught in it. And has it affected volunteers at all?
Yes, obviously, a lot of our core volunteers are seniors, okay, and so they've been, protecting themselves, and they're a bit of a stay away. Although we have a pretty steady group, and with the new repurposed center being moved, that's separate from the mission, and it's not open to the population. It's only open to agencies. We're building our volunteer corps back because it's kind of a safer environment, both from the population and from Omicron.
Yeah, I think volunteerism across the board has sort of taken a step back because, like you said, a lot of them are seniors and they do have those health issues, and unfortunately, they've had to take a step back from volunteering. So are you needing more volunteers or extra volunteers at this point?
We can always use volunteers. There's a variety of ways to volunteer. You can simply go online to streetsalive.ca, find volunteerism. There's an application, and we'll get you in the system.
Sounds great. Now, have you noticed an increase in the homeless population or in the number of addictions because of the pandemic, Ken?
Yes, but not because of the pandemic. It's because of the opioid crisis. Okay, I think that there's certainly a modest increase in the number of people experiencing homelessness through economic reasons, but that's the addiction thing is huge, and we're losing people almost daily and that is creating the big problem. And definitely our street numbers are up over the past couple of years. Now, the COVID crisis may have caused issues that force people into addiction, um, and we are experiencing that. But it is the opioid crisis that is really central right now.
Wow. You know, with every bad story like that, I mean, that's just heartbreaking. There's got to be some success stories as well. Are you able to maybe share some success stories?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Our recovery programs, Men and Women, Genesis and Exodus, we are full. So we have approximately, between both programs, we have well over 30 people in our recovery. We have a number of people through our recovery program that are right now, in the men's program, we've got 10 guys who've done a year. Sobriety in a year. We've got a number of guys that are in 90-day programs. There is no question that when we work to bring people to recovery, especially through the gospel of Christ, there is huge success. We employ 6 people out of those that have come out of the program, and others have returned to work. Other places, we've got a couple of guys that are over 2 years now. They've been reconnected with their children. It's just very exciting. So yes, there is success, and there's success in the community. We've got, Alpha House with their program, Fresh Start South Country with their program, SAMS. We're all working together to make a dent in this crisis, but it's still very significant, and it's very expensive.
Oh, I would imagine. Is that another way that viewers can help?
Absolutely. I mean, financial resources are key for us. To be perfectly honest, though, one of the number one things that we are desperate for, that our viewers can help with, is prayer. There is only one way to solve this problem, and that's through the intervention of God and Christ. And so prayer would be our number one priority and our number one need.
Mm-hmm. Now, you'd mentioned, of course, these wonderful programs that Streets Alive conducts, which is Exodus Men's Life Recovery Program and then Genesis Women's Life Recovery Program. And you mentioned some success stories there. Can you maybe explain what happens here at these programs, just so our viewers understand a little bit better?
Yeah. So, both programs are what we call recovery programs, and the programs have a combination of classes and activities and things that are centered around life skills. They're centered around giving people tools, in other words, to deal with it. But one of the keys for us is we have involved in the program is also the things that chases after the core issues. Almost all addicts are there because of a trauma or traumas that they've experienced in their life at some point, and that's the thing that a lot of our problems, our programs go after. And of course, we do it. They're faith-based and Christ-centered, and so it's really getting them to let Christ in. But if we can deal with that original trauma, that's where the success comes from.
Wow.
It's healing,
Yeah.
and once people are healed, they're way better.
Wow, it sounds like a lot of counseling goes in there. That's amazing.
It's counseling with love. You got to have a lot of love and a lot of patience. But when we started 30 years ago, when we were dealing with alcohol and paint thinner and hairspray, we had time. With the opioid crisis, we can have a person that relapses. We bring them in and they relapse and they're dead the next day. There is no room anymore. So we are very focused on, when we get people in, keeping them in and keeping them moving forward, because the relapse can be deadly.
Oh, God, it's just amazing the work that you guys are doing. Now, a big part of helping to turn some people's lives around is providing a solid education as well. We talked about counseling with love, but now there's also education. So let's talk about the Ask Learning Center, so ASK Learning Center. What's that all about?
Well, so Ask has been rolled into Genesis Connect, and Ask was primarily the recovery system. Okay, but again, within those programs that we teach, we also work towards offering them and moving them into moving forward. So the recovery programs are 3 stages. Stage 1 and 2 focus on they're living in housing. We're working with them. There's daily classes and all of those opportunities. Stages 3 and 4 are when we've moved them out into either part-time work or education. So we've had a couple of women who've gone back to university. We've had men who now are completing their journey. Their journeyman tickets, those kinds of things. We're working with Training Inc. and some of the other places where we can feed people in. So we're not trying to be a one-stop shop. We use the resources of the community, but and Genesis Connect is a separate women's building, okay, and we do what we call DIY there. So they do arts and stuff like that, but we have stuff that they're selling. Different things that they do, journals and things that they make. So everything helps to build their esteem and their value in themselves.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing, Ken. I just love the work that you're doing. One thing that can affect the common person, what do you say to people who aren't sure how to act or how to respond when they're approached by someone who is homeless? I mean, this has happened to everybody.
Number one, there's a tendency to want to give them money to just get them to go away. Don't. They will appear aggressive, okay, and it's okay to be able to just kind of firmly say, look, give me some space. What is it you need? Okay. Are you hungry? And if they're hungry, you can get them something. The biggest they can do thing is just refer them. Say, look, most of them come to Streets Alive. Just say, go to Streets Alive. I support Streets Alive. I provide funding to them, so you go there and get your help. Okay. That's really the best thing you can do. Plus, go to the soup kitchen, go to Alpha House. Just say, and if you support those organizations, and I hope you do, then just say, this is who I support. So go there, because that's how I help you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would imagine the basic needs, though, for these people on the street are the food, the clothing, the shelter, encouragement, helping in beating their addictions. That still needs to be the number one key there. And like you said, send them to Streets Alive. Where better a place for them to get the help and the love that they need. Absolutely. Yeah. Do you want to put in another quick little plug for Coldest Night of the Year? It's coming up.
Yes, Coldest Night of the Year. Please, it's a great family event. So this is something where you can bring your kids out. You can bring your grandkids out. You can all sign up. If you do the 5K walk, it's about 45 minutes. And there's hot chocolate stations and all that kind of stuff. And so it's a great way to get out and spend an hour or two and raise some money for Streets Alive. So Coldest Night of the Year / Lethbridge. Join a team, make up a team. If you have any questions at all, you can call Streets Alive and ask for Jennifer or Allie, and they would be glad to help you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ken, for speaking with us today. Appreciate having you on again.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
The term mental illness seems to have some stigma associated with it, and it's a challenge that many people live with today. Now, today's guest is no stranger to struggles with mental health challenges, but has also learned how to overcome them. Allie Marie Smith is a certified life coach and the founder of a nonprofit group known as Wonderfully Made. She's also author of the book, Wonderfully Made, Discover the Identity, Love, and Worth You Were Created For. Allie, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you so much for having me.
You bet. Now, what is your organization Wonderfully Made all about?
Our mission is to help teen girls and young women know their God given value and live spiritually, emotionally, and mentally healthy lives. So, we offer young women's conferences. We have a podcast for young women and the women who love them, many films, online encouragement. We send encouragement packages to teenage girls here in the US who are in mental or emotional distress. So we do a lot to really encourage young women to really live into their true identity in Christ.
I'm glad you brought up online encouragement because nowadays there seems to be a lot more online bullying. So this really counteracts that nicely, doesn't it?
It is. It is an experience too many girls are experiencing. Absolutely.
Now, Allie, as a young woman, you attempted suicide and lived with a mental health diagnosis. Would you care to share some of that story and where you're at today?
Absolutely. Well, I was a good girl from a good home and had every reason to be happy. And I was pretty feisty and confident until about the age of 12, when I started to experiencing uninvited feelings of loneliness, insecurity, unworthiness. And it really didn't add up because I had everything a girl could want, loving family. I never experienced any childhood trauma. And so looking back, it was really the onset of what would become clinical depression, which really escalated through high school. And on the outside, it looked like I was the girl who had it all together, excelling in school and in soccer. But on the inside, I was really fighting a very difficult battle with depression. And 2 weeks after I graduated, summa cum laude, with a smile stretched across my face and appearances were deceiving, I found myself in a deep and a dark and a debilitating depression, unable to sleep, eat, or talk. My body was alive. There was no life within me. I was admitted to the psychiatric hospital, put on antidepressants, sent home 3 days later. And you're right, on a gloomy June day, I grabbed the car keys from my house in Silicon Valley, where I lived, and I headed off to the Golden Gate Bridge with intention to end my life.
So what happened? Where did you, is it at that point that maybe God reached out to you or did somebody else reach out to you that stopped you from taking the next step?
Well, God certainly intervened that day. I was driving somewhat recklessly. My tire hit a curb. I got a flat tire and I sat in my car, paralyzed, unsure what to do. And there was a knock on my window, and a silver haired, kind hearted man came and asked me if he could help me and called for roadside assistance. I engaged with a real conversation with that man after not talking for over a month with anyone. And that encounter gave me a little hope. And after my tire was fixed, I headed home to my family. Unfortunately, that wasn't the end of my challenges with mental health. That fall, I tried to go to college. A therapist advised my parents, I should get on with my life, but I wasn't well, and I came apart again. And I was readmitted to the psychiatric hospital during September 2001. I even watched the Twin Tower attacks from the hospital. But this is where the beautiful part happens, because I was as broken as a girl could be, very sick in mind, body, and spirit. Christians in my family's life began praying for me. And I asked for a Bible as the medication and the treatment started to lift the desire to end my life. And I started to read it for the first time. And I saw that Jesus loved the broken and came to offer them hope and healing and belonging. And one day we were escorted to the hospital as a woman sang Amazing Grace. I surrendered my life to Christ, and I've never been the same. I have had battles with mental health since then, but that is the story of how Jesus intervened in my life and rescued me. Today, I'm thriving, free from symptoms of mental health, and I do everything I can to try to stay well and to be well. And professional help has really helped me so much.
That's wonderful to hear. Allie, in the process of finding your own identity, You've become very passionate about helping teenage girls and other young women know their God-given value and identity. Why is that so very important to you?
Well, I know what it was like to be a teen girl, lost, confused, insecure, flooded with feelings of unworthiness and shame. And this is an experience too many of our teen girls and young women are experiencing. About 1 in 4 young women struggle with a mental health condition, whether that's depression, anxiety, or an eating disorder. To compound this, they are living in a godless culture that tells them their worth is found in their appearance and in their influence and in their successes, and they are contending with the toxicity of social media, and many girls don't know the love of Christ and that their true value and identity is simply found in a personal relationship with God. And so I am so passionate about teen girls and young women because I know through my story that God can do beautiful things with a broken life. And he can help these girls and young women really live the lives they were created for.
Do you sometimes maybe encourage young women to get off of social media for a period of time because it can become quite toxic?
Absolutely. I actually extended an invitation to every teen girl, young woman, mom, mentor in our community to take a social media detox as they read through my book, because it is so much about our true purpose and it's about living an intentional life. And so I always invite and challenge young women to trade a distracted life for their actual life, to practice the spiritual discipline of presence. And we know that social media is highly toxic to young users, but especially teenage girls. Even Facebook's own findings have realized this, that it increases anxiety and depression. So I tell every girl, every adult who is experiencing mental health issues, I think the last place they should be on is social media, unless by some reason they're able to handle it in a healthy way.
So, Ali, do you believe that beauty and purpose comes really from our brokenness? And if so, why?
Well, I think our beauty and purpose is ultimately found in our relationship with Christ, but I do believe that there is so much beauty that can be found from being broken. In breaking and coming to God, we can even become more beautiful. There is a Japanese form of pottery known as kintsugi, and it's where the potter takes a piece of pottery that has been broken and shattered into countless pieces. And instead of throwing that broken piece of pottery away, that potter takes all those pieces and using an often gold or silver lacquer mends them together into a new piece of pottery that is even more beautiful and resilient than it was before the breakage. And I believe this is a beautiful analogy of what God can do with the broken parts of our lives. He doesn't throw us away. He is our great redeemer, and his eternal plan for us is good. And so we know that all things can work together for good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose, and he doesn't waste our pain.
Amen. Ali, how do you fight for your own mental health? Do you open up God's word, maybe take some walks out in the park? And what maybe steps can people take? How can you encourage others to do the same?
Sure. Well, because I've struggled so severely, I am so motivated to stay well and to be well. Um, of course, I'm absolutely in God's word every day. We know that neuroplasticity is the real thing. Being transformed by the renewing of our mind, we can create new neural pathways in our brain. We know that we're not stuck with old thought patterns. We can be transformed by our thoughts. So for me, that looks like scripture memorization. It looks like truth declarations. It looks like praying, regularly throughout my day. On top of that, I also am very committed to living a clean and a healthy lifestyle. So for me, that looks like religiously guarding my sleep, going to bed, waking up at the same time every day, taking my medications, supplements, and vitamins with gratitude. I use a pill box so I never miss anything. And I say a prayer of thanks. God, thank you for this that you have used, this tool you have given me to help heal me and to help me live my best life. I abstain, of course, from drugs and alcohol as well. I get regular exercise, move in ways that bring me joy. For me, that's surfing here in California, time with my dog, stress management. There are so many things we can do to be an active and a willing participant in our own wellness. And so for me, I'm committed to doing anything I can to stay well and to be well. And I want to encourage anyone to remember that you have agency over your daily decisions for your wellness. And there's so much we can do to improve and enhance our mental health.
What is one of the biggest lies you believe girls and women buy into today?
I think for so many teen girls and young women, they believe the lie that in order to have worth, they must live out loud, and often that's online, and do big things. But we know that God doesn't demand perfection from us. He doesn't expect us to do big things, but God invites us to live faithful lives. You know, I think of my grandmother, Marion, my dad's mom. She was part of the greatest generation. She endured the Great Depression and World War II, in which my grandfather fought, and she didn't live a fancy life, but she lived a joy-filled, beautiful, and a faithful life. And unfortunately, too many girls, too many young women, really too many women of any age believe that we need attention, that we need to be follow worthy online, that we need to do big things. But the reality is God doesn't demand those things to us. And instead, he invites us to live faithful, beautiful, joy-filled lives, however that may look for each one of us.
Now, Allie, your book is entitled Wonderfully Made. Can you maybe summarize your book quickly here for us? And what does it really mean to be wonderfully made?
I would love to. This is the message I would love any young woman and really woman of any age to really grasp. It's really about knowing, the tagline really captures it. It's about discovering the identity, love, and worth we were created for through our relationship with Christ. It has 30 short chapters. Each chapter starts with the word made, unveiling 30 unique purposes we have been made for. The first 3 chapters build a very solid foundation of faith, stepping into many more purposes God has created for us. I share very vulnerable moments from my own story to let my readers know that they're not alone and that their struggle is not their identity, and that the life God invites us to is so much better than what the world has to offer. So it's really a guidebook for living a very intentional, joy-filled, purposeful life. And I hope that many girls and women come to a closer relationship with God through it.
So, Allie, any final advice to those who are watching right now, perhaps struggling with self-doubt and depression?
Absolutely. Depression specifically, I'll speak to that. Part of the illness is it makes you feel so alone and isolated. And so I would encourage anyone who is experiencing symptoms of depression, who maybe has thoughts of suicide, to stop isolating, to talk to someone, to tell someone, call the suicide hotline. So many people, way more people than you can imagine, have been where you are and have come through the other side. Your struggle is not your identity. There is hope for your mental health. There are many treatment options available that can help you press forward and rise above this. And this isn't the end of your story. And so please hang on. I know taking it one day at a time can even be too overwhelming. So I want to encourage you to take it one breath at a time. You are profoundly loved. Your life matters immensely. God loves you so much. Please reach out, stop isolating, get the help that you need. This isn't the end of the story. You make the world a more beautiful place, and we need you here.
That is wonderfully said. Allie Marie Smith is the author of Wonderfully Made, Discover the Identity, Love, and Worth You Were Created For. Thanks for joining us today from California.
Thank you so much for having me.
On behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News, I'm Hal Roberts. God bless, and thanks for watching.